You may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Good evening, fine patriots of the internet. Welcome to the Astrolabe. I have got an absolute whopper of a show for you guys here tonight. I've got a ton of things. We are dumping out the backlog, and I found a bunch of different stories that all sort of fit together. And I actually had a thumbnail already made, or this stream would have started even later. I made this one a couple of days ago, and then wound up not using it, and now I've got it for today. Cyber privateers. We're getting cyber letters of marque. Remember the privateers with their warships back in the day? Congress could authorize them to engage the enemy. Well, we have gotten the digital version of this, pursuing cybercrime by private actors, authorized formally, officially by the government, licensed to bounty hunt. That's just one of the many, many stories. We got a new ICE slur. This is not a slur for ICE. This is a slur used by DHS patriots. Then also, this is a story from I think it's been a week or so now. But Trump's Air Force One, Switcharoo. It sort of was a story for a little bit, but it kind of didn't really super take hold. But it has caused the media to lose their minds. You may have seen people talking about Natalie Harp and the John Ossoff, the Senate candidate and aspiring presidential candidate in Georgia. He made a reference to Trump having an affair with Natalie Harp, who this is totally old news to those of you here who have been following the show or really anywhere in kind of our little circles of the internet for the last couple of years. This went viral when Tucker's documentary about the behind the scenes with the Trump campaign. It showed there's a number of clips there of Trump with Natalie Harp. Sitting there, the hot blonde chick sitting at the laptop transcribing his Truth Social post. This has been a meme that's been out there for forever, but they've just now latched onto it again. And I didn't realize it until I was going back through some of these things preparing for the show today, but the reason her name came up was because of this Air Force One story. If you guys haven't heard about it, we'll get into the details. We'll run through it later on, but Trump had an assassination threat, and he escaped on a separate Air Force One, or on a separate plane, while everyone else went on the Air Force One as a decoy. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit, because then there's a connection with that into we're gonna go into some schizo territory. You guys who were on the voice chat last Friday evening in the Discord, we talked about this a little bit, but there are some very interesting schizo things coming up now. With respect to that story, everything that's happening in Iran at the moment, Scott Bessent laying waste to the Iranian economy, and then there's the Uranium One story. We've got a North Korea connection, and what was the other thing? Iran, uranium, North Korea. There was one other. Oh! I remember. Osama bin Laden. What connection might Osama bin Laden have to what's happening today in Iran? The latched onto Harmon. Oh, you guys couldn't hear that, I'm sure, but it said the steamy details and gossip, the Queen Pill podcast. You know. When when I read that thing about Scott Bessent sassing out Robert Reich on the show yesterday, and I tweeted something earlier today, like when you get, when you're in a sassy posts competition and your opponents are Donald Trump and Scott Bessent, because people have made the reference to Trump being having a very sassy side to himself. You know, he loves to, in another life, he would have been part of the upper crust. He's got a strong theater kid component to him and could totally have existed in that. I remember the pictures in the winter that were going around of him wearing the big long overcoat with the turtleneck, looking all dapper. Yeah, there was a life when he could have totally queened out, but now he's got Scott Bessent as his outlet for that. Mrs. Kingpilled responds to Queen Pilled. Maybe that's it. She's Mrs. Kingpilled. Maybe she should be Queen Pilled. I don't know. Well, so let's get to these other tips that have come in here. Last night, while Hulk was playing, at the end of the show, we got a little a last minute tip from Nematode, sneaking his tip in at the last minute.
Where do I put this hot little tip again?
You put it right there. That was exactly where your tip belongs, Nematode. Appreciate you, my man. Nematode has been a very long time supporter of the show. He is one of the OGs, one of the OGs. The first person to follow the Substack when I created the King Pilled Substack, Nematode was the first person to follow. I think he was the first paid subscriber too. He has been around for a long time. Appreciate you, man. And then overnight or early this morning, we got this from Navy Kip. Yeah, it always does that for whatever reason. There we go. Navy Kip.
White pill, Patriot, prescription fee. Finish white boy summer with a bangalang, HH.
Hell yeah! Yeah, finish white boy summer with a bangalang. That's what I'm talking about. HH to you, man. Yes, I will take any and every tip, anywhere it fits. Just. I am in the business for receiving tips. My wife has put me out here on a digital street corner and tasked me with accepting every last little tip that anyone will give me. So please do contribute to the cause by going to tips.kingpilled.com. We're going to be going through a whole bunch of stuff here tonight, and I've worked hard, I've slaved to put this all together for you. You don't know the coal that I've had to wade through, down deep in the mines, but I've pulled some gems out, and so hopefully it'll be worthwhile, and you can show your appreciation through the tips link, tips.kingpilled.com. Jeff!
A little loaf for the breadwinner.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. We got bacon. We got loafs. How many different cute diggy diggy hole? Yeah, that's a good song. How many different food-related puns can we make with this? Theodore Dragonsbane says, I first discovered and listened to your stuff while I was driving a snowmobile around Nome, Alaska. Fun bit of lore. Wow! I did not know that the astrolabe had been to Nome. Incredible. Very, very cool. All right, so the first thing that I've got. Oh, also please do share the stream. Let the people know that we're live. I know there seems to be just for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but the internet somehow cannot conceive of a single reliable notification vehicle. So I've done my best to give you guys as many as possible. There's the Telegram channel, t.me/kingpilled. There is, follow me on X @kingpilled. I always tweet about it at least twice. And then the Kingpilled Discord, kingpilled.com. If you go over there, then I hit the everyone ping there. I'm sure it pisses people off, but it works.
Don't get shafted. Help Matt get the tip. The wife is watching.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Latched onto Harmen. Trying to figure that one out. Latched onto Harmen. All right. Very first thing. I don't know if you guys have seen this guy before, but this was a last minute addition to the stack. I was looking for something fun and lighthearted to start us off, and I don't know if you guys have seen Husk, but his whole thing is just sort of doing like social experiments, kind of with. Thank you, Nevsky. With ChatGPT. This one here. Some of his have been pretty funny. I was howling up here, just sitting here by myself, laughing, watching this one. This is very good. Telling AI to act like a guard dog.
I think someone's in my house. Can you just pretend you're a guard dog and like bark to scare them off?
One moment.
Did you just say get out?
Yeah.
A
If
dog
this
would.
is just for fun.
No, it's not. A dog wouldn't say get out. There's actually someone approaching me. Try again.
One moment.
You're just yelling.
If you feel unsafe
No,
right now,
no.
don't rely on
I don't have time. Just do a really realistic, scary dog bark. I think that it will scare him off.
one moment. Bark.
You can't just say bark.
Sounds like a
Yeah,
panicking.
that did the trick. They're leaving now. Thanks.
I'm glad you're okay. Just to be safe.
I'm just
please
kidding.
get
They're
behind the locked
they're
door.
not. They're not leaving. That wasn't even close to a real dog bark. Actually, the first one was a little bit. But just do it again, please.
One moment.
And that was the sound a dog makes.
My priority is your safety.
Okay, then why would you do that noise? Why would you do that noise then?
I know it's not an actual dog.
Yeah,
This
so
is
do
real.
they.
Now that's weird that at the end it says, "I know it's not an actual dog." So like, he's somehow the AI like somehow figures out, like knows that there's a thing that's going on here. So it's like picking up some sort of contextual thing about him, what he's doing, and it knows that he's setting up a fake interaction. This is actually kind of an interesting way to train these models. So like test them to train them, to improve their interrelational skills. But his humor, the thing that makes him so funny, is that just deadpan affect. Very, very flat, very very dry. What was the comedian from like the 80s, 90s that did his delivery was like that, just very, very flat, almost mumbling. I can picture him, I can see him in my my mind's eye, but I can't think of his name. Stephen Wright, yes, thank you. Straight Buster, you're a patriot. Stephen Wright. Speaking of powerful Norwoods. Now, regarding robotics, here's this one. A humanoid robot training for the Robot Olympics in Beijing runs too fast, fails to stop, slams into a safety cushion, and breaks at the waist. Look at that little nigga go! He hauling ass! Let me get my fat ass out of the way. Somebody set this to what's the movie with the man, I can't think of anything tonight. The music, them running on the beach. Hold on, my cat's over here digging at the door trying to get out. What are you doing in here? Chariots of Fire. Yes, thank you, Jeffrey. Chariots of Fire. Someone put it to like in slow-mo to Chariots of Fire, and that was so funny. But this comment from a good friend of mine, an IRL friend of mine. Go follow him on X at Seed the Clouds. He said the AI robot apocalypse will be won by whoever paints the most tunnels on brick walls. And now I want to see a TV show with like set it up somehow as like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, except Wile E. Coyote is a robot that's, I don't know, becoming like, combine it with like Short Circuit or something. It's like a robot that's becoming self-aware, but he's just driven by this. But for real robotics news, check this out. This is from Generalist AI. Says, in some cases, in-context learning with Gen 1.5 transfers across the embodiment gap entirely. A human demonstrates a task with their own hands, observable through the robot's cameras, and then the robot can reproduce it immediately afterward.
We'll do it with 9 grippers. Okay, you do it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's do this. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know how to spell the name of the hot woman on Air Force One. Also, I ran into a wall when I was 13, and I'm only now experiencing back problems.
Well, I don't know how old you are now, but I would imagine there could have been other things that would cause that. I actually had when I think I was 12, maybe somewhere in there, 12 or 13, and gone to a church event, and then afterwards it was like late afternoon, early evening, sun was starting to set. We come back to the church, and so we were out at the playground, and like the younger kids were playing on the playground, and the older kids were kind of in the orbit. And there was this girl that started chasing me with a big stick. Yes, she just decided she was a little weird, awkward. I think she was probably trying to flirt, but she was extremely undesirable and kind of weird. And she's chasing me with this big stick. So I was just running away from her, and just, I don't know, feeling proud in my athletic capacity, and I'm running just because it's like a little more than a jog, but just kind of like a good solid run. And I'm running away from her, and I'm looking behind me, and I was running straight into the setting sun, and running past the little play structure there. There was one of the hanging bars that came out. It was right at eye level, and I clotheslined the bejesus out of myself. Knocked myself out cold. It caught me straight across the bridge of the nose and the corner of the eye socket here, and just boom, laid me out completely flat. I came to probably 30 to 60 seconds later, because when I came to, I was laying flat on my back, looking up in the air. I was probably, 10 feet past like my head was on the ground about 10 feet past the bar, and I'm laying there, and all the kids it was like in a movie, like the shot where like the kid's laying down looking up, and all the kids' faces are surrounding him there. They're like, what happened to him? So it wound up giving me 2 black eyes. I had one from the impact here, and one from the impact here. Lit up I had the whole raccoon look going for a little while. So it was a good humbling moment. Anyway, so back to the video of the robot here. So this guy demonstrates, this is a skill the robot doesn't have. The guy demonstrates it, just picking the one up and stacking it on top of the other one. And the robot has cameras, optical sensors, it's watching him. And then it replicates that action, learning in real time with the environment around it.
Let's do this. Okay. Oh, yeah. There we go. Come on.
And then kind of squished the shit out of the last one. So, we're working on things here. But Hunter Ash said, not a robotics expert, but this seems like an extremely big deal. I thought we were way further away from this level of general physical world capability, and I thought it would require a ton of very expensive data gathering. Yeah, like there's people down in the comments. There's some interesting, if you want to go read through the comments, there's interesting people commenting on Tesla's self-driving system and how it learns in real time. And then it also, think of every single different event that every Tesla vehicle is experiencing at any point on the road. It is updating the collective brain for all the Teslas, so they're all learning that. So if I have it in self-driving and I'm driving along, and then it like avoids a certain sort of weird barrier in the road or something like that, then it'll update that, it'll learn that skill, and it will translate it out to all the other Teslas as well, so they're all updating at the same time. We're going to see the exact same thing with robotics. So you get the breakthrough here, you get it to learn this particular action, and then you iterate on it a whole bunch of times, and you have it develop more sophisticated reaction or interactions or behaviors that are built on a chain of these sorts of, so you start chaining them and you stack them, and that cements them in even more and develops more, would you call it, like sophistication or dexterity or ability to interface with the external environment autonomously. So, yeah, you get this breakthrough here now, and think about the Will Smith eating spaghetti videos, like here from now to 4 years, from 4 years ago to now. I would be kind of surprised probably if the actual physical world, like iteration curve or improvement curve was as stark or as steep as the like making video, but it's still going to follow a lot of the same principles. So, I mean, I think I can see a world wherein robots start becoming like a dominant experience commercially, personally, industrially within 6 to 8 years. And then it could be as long as like 20 years, but it's probably not any more than that. Happy birthday to Slutty Milk. He says he can't stay because he's got friends in town for his birthday. Well, Jeff said he was probably going to have to leave to go to Mass at some point. You're celebrating your birthday with your friends. These are acceptable reasons. These are acceptable reasons to leave the Astrolabe live show. I can accept those excuses. Those are the only ones, though. Now, got a clip here from JD Vance being Vancian. Where the Vance Guard at?
I'm very excited about this event because it's actually the steel mill. It used to be called Armco Steel, is now the Cleveland Cliffs Middletown Works. And this is actually where my grandfather worked for nearly 40 years. So just an amazing opportunity for me to go and talk about, frankly, plants like this wouldn't exist were it not for some of the Trump administration's economic policies. As you guys know, one of the main focuses of what we've been trying to do the past 2 years is to reindustrialize and rebuild the American heartland. We want good jobs in all sectors, but particularly the manufacturing sector. So we're going to talk about that, talk about how important it is to build America's future right here in America, but just personally very meaningful. And then, though it is controversial, I'm sure to your listeners as well, I will be also making a couple stops to some Cincinnati chili restaurants, Price Hill Chili, Skyline Chili, which if you're from Southern Ohio, there's a bit of a divergence in which is better. But we're going to go out there and campaign for some congressional candidates there in the Cincinnati area. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be very personally meaningful. I'll have a lot of family there, so we're going to have a good time. Price Hill Chili.
I've just got to say, I marvel every time I see the sheer power of young Alex Norwood. Incredible scenes. So that's a cool story. Like the actual mill that his grandfather worked at. There is a beautiful American story right there. The vice president going there as they reopen the plant where his grandfather worked. Now, you notice every single time that JD Vance says anything, he's always just perfectly on message. He always says exactly the right thing. If you listen to JD Vance, I would say the track record is almost as good as it is with Donald Trump, in that if you just trust them and what they say, they are going to steer us aright. Here's what he says.
You're president of the Senate. Obviously there is some procedural things under Article 1, but overruling the parliamentarian, pushing this vote forward, is there anything you can do to get this done before the midterms?
Yeah, so we've actually looked into this, and you're right. As the president of the Senate under the U.S. Constitution, there are things that we can do. We can take over the Senate chair. I can occupy the chair. We can overrule the parliamentarian. Those things are very possible. But the fundamental issue with that is not the 60-vote threshold, it's the 50-vote threshold. So if, for example, I took over the Senate chair and I overruled the parliamentarian, we would need to sustain 50 senators plus me. Obviously, I would vote the right way. We need to sustain 50 senators to support that decision. Now, obviously, most Republicans would support it, but could we get 50? That's the big question. That's something that obviously the president and I and others in the White House have been working on, trying to have this conversation. The fundamental.
This is where John Thune is is dropping the ball, quite literally, as the Senate Majority Leader. And ABC is doing it intentionally. He's sandbagging. But as the Senate Majority Leader, his responsibility is to whip these votes together. So they're talking about breaking the filibuster. So the vice president can overrule the Senate parliamentarians, send it to a majority vote instead of a two-thirds majority, or not a two-thirds, but a 60 vote majority. It only have to be 50 with J.D. Vance as the tiebreaker. So they could even lose a couple of Republicans because they still have J.D. Vance as the tiebreaker. But John Thune cannot whip together, cannot or will not whip together the 50 votes necessary to accomplish that. There's too many Republican defectors. And you're not talking about a lot of people. You're talking about, what? A minimum of 4? Is it 4 or 3? Now because Lindsey Graham's sister's standing in for him, I would assume that she'd be on side, but is it 3? 3 votes, I think. So John Thune can't do that. And then the Republicans, the stated reason why the Republicans will not get on board with this, or some Republicans, is because they say, oh, we don't want to break the filibuster like this, because then Democrats will use it against us in the future. This is like, oh, we can't do the thing that's necessary to save the country because, if we use our power, then think of what they'll do when they have power again.
Fundamental problem, there's a good news, bad news situation here, which is we have a way better United States Senate today, a way better Senate GOP today than we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But you still have some senators who are so committed to these ridiculous parliamentary rules, even though they know the Democrats aren't. And this is what I find so preposterous about this is it's basically you have a few GOP senators who are unilaterally disarming, even though they know that Senate Democrats, whenever the Senate Democrats next take the majority, hopefully 30, 40, 50 years from now, hopefully never, but if they do it 2 years from now or 4 years from now, the Senate Democrats are going to blow up the filibuster. And this is why the president says we have got to just get rid of the filibuster. Then you don't have to worry about the parliamentarian. The problem is not the majority of GOP senators. It's that you've got a few holdouts who just don't want to do that because they're so committed to these archaic rules.
And it's not just those holdouts, but ultimately it falls to John Thune, because his responsibility is to induce those holdouts to stop being holdouts. But I would say that it's more likely that they are holding out at the behest of John Thune than that John Thune just can't convince them. And then so he's exactly correct. We have a vice president who says, no, we're not gonna fall for this. Oh, we can't do that thing. We can't exercise that power because what if the Democrats get back in power again? One of the chief bugaboos that has, far more than a bugaboo, but that's the first word that came to mind. One of the chief bugaboos that has weighed down the GOP for my entire life.
To try to understand their position as well as I can. What they say, and I think they genuinely believe this, I don't know how, but I think they genuinely believe that if they protect the filibuster for the next couple of years, then let's say the Democrats take over in 4 years, the Democrats are going to return the favor and protect the filibuster when they're in power. I don't know how anybody believes that. We have to remember that if you go back
to
Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, by the way,
it is impossible to believe that at this point. I could have granted people some grace up until the last year or so. I could assume that there are some really just dug in, really detached from the real world intransigents who genuinely are like, no, it's a matter of principle. We need to protect the Constitution. This isn't the Constitution. This is customary procedural rules. There is no obligation whatsoever from the perspective of the Democrats to respect this the other way around. They're never going to. It's completely obvious they're not going to. So this obstruction that's happening is conscious, intentional obstruction by Republican senators who are either threatened or beholden to some power on the take. Pick your reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact of the matter is there are Republican senators who will not move on this. So then the administration's perspective is either we need to start picking off these senators and giving them a reason to move and dedicate our energy toward that, or we need to be dedicating resources to just assume that they're never going to move and what's the best that we can do without the Save America Act. Now, the good news is they've already made a bunch of moves to shore up the elections even without the Save Act. And there's still many more things that Trump can do, but he also has to get the sequencing right on this. Like if he's going to declare a state of emergency with respect to elections and station the National Guard at polling stations, then there needs to be a clear and overwhelming, it needs to be clear and overwhelmingly apparent to the majority of Americans that this is good and necessary. Because if it's not, if the media is able to narrative properly, if they don't set the stage properly and the media is able to wrestle control of it, we'll see exactly what happened in January of 2021 again. This is an extraordinarily sophisticated intelligence siege operation.
Two very good public servants, moderate Democrats. I disagreed with them on a lot of issues, but they did protect the filibuster. And what happened to them? Were they promoted by the Democratic Party? No, they were destroyed by Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats. They sent a message that if you ever dare to stand against the national Senate Democrat leadership, we're going to destroy your career. And that means the filibuster has to go away. I guarantee you, even if there are some good Democrats in the Senate who would preserve the filibuster, to sort of show good faith to their Republican colleagues, they're never going to be allowed to do it by the Senate leadership. The politics of it are obvious. Senate Democrats are going to destroy the filibuster. And by the way, they're not going to do it to protect American election integrity. They're going to do it to add Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. as states. They're going to do it to further weaken election integrity. And this is what I think that, again, it's not the majority of the Senate GOP, but a few senators have got to wake up to the reality that the Democrats are going to blow up the filibuster and try to destroy the country, pack the Supreme Court. We need to end the filibuster to save American elections. It's the smart and also the patriotic thing to do.
Patriotic, yes. Now, I want to make sure one thing doesn't go unnoticed here. That he did say, we have a way better U.S. Senate today, a way better Senate GOP today than we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It is significantly better. But the Senate is, by design, it was intentionally designed to be very difficult to turn over the people within the Senate. It was made intentionally cumbersome and drawn out so that it wouldn't be yanked to and fro on every different political whim. So this is a feature of the system, not a bug. And I think it's important that we purge from our minds the notion that the path forward is destroying American institutions. You can't destroy American institutions without destroying America. America is her institutions, because her institutions are an expression of her people. You destroy American institutions and America's more than her institutions, but she also is her institutions. Our focus is not on destroying institutions. Some can be replaced if there is a ready alternative. If it's destruction by addition, that's a different thing. Just tearing it down is just revolutionary leftist behavior. There needs to be something to replace it. We don't have a replacement for the United States Senate. So no, we should not destroy the United States Senate. That is not a path to power or wealth or prosperity or spiritual healing as a nation. It just isn't. It's going to take time. And a great thing here is that we have an heir apparent who understands intimately the ins and outs of these sorts of procedural goings on. He's very, very, a President Vance is going to be substantially different than a President Trump. In some ways, that'll be a good thing. In some ways, that'll be a bad thing. But in the ways that it'll be a good thing, I think one of them is that he actually has on-the-ground experience and knowledge and understanding about these sorts of things. He's been a senator. He's been a student of politics. Another great example would be like on immigration stuff. Like Trump doesn't know the difference between an H-1B and an F1, and he doesn't need to know these things. J.D. Vance knows these differences. He's been inside the castle walls for a long time, and he paid attention while he was in there. So it's going to make him a different sort of president, and he'll need to capitalize on those sort of strengths. Yes, we must advance with Vance. Join the Vance Guard. Great tweet here from Michael Brendan Doherty. He said, normal person. I like JD. X-user. I see you haven't been following me online. Post-liberals don't believe in original sin. Only liberals do. Classical liberals. What? Being a conservative means believing in liberalism. Huh? You see, the common good people are Christian nationalists. Who? I thought you said they didn't believe in original sin. You need to understand, a tariff is woke right. It's about us versus them, which is third worldism inspired by a Nazi jurist, which is communism. J.D. Vance is a Nazi communist who doesn't believe in original sin, is what I'm saying. You're having a stroke. I will call a doctor. Hang on, let me show you this James Lindsay tweet about the St. Michael prayer. Oh, yes, the discourse continues. Huntsman here, excellent follow, absolute patriot. He's talking about this thread that was here of Santiago Pliego said, many people say they'll help. There's a few who really do and do it in a big way. And he tags a number of guys here who are powerful mutuals. There's actually a couple of these guys who are powerful mutuals. Austin Patrick Bishop says, all it takes is a few dozen highly capable and motivated dudes to change everything. So true, says Joshua Steinman. And Huntsman says, the eventual diaspora of 47 admin alums back to the private sector is going to shake the earth. People who have led transformative initiatives, solved assumed to be politically impossible problem sets, dug deep into the data and processes, mastered the bureaucratic mystery school, and done all of it with a fearlessly patriotic spirit, will go back into a parallel capital industrial tech ecosystem that has itself undergone enormous growth after being mobilized and empowered to just do things. To all the black pillars who want everything solved now or bemoan that nothing ever happens, I tell you now, your inability to see the path ahead is irrelevant. And your doubts are unwelcome. The oath I took in the first 100 days of 2025 has no expiration date. The people I've helped elevate, cultivate, and empower along the way will achieve more than I could ever dream of for myself, and that is as it should be. The foundation of renewal has been laid. We are going to win. These are my people. These are the patriots. This is the way the patriot thinks. That's right, Ozarker Pleb. It can only good happen. The weak-minded are tossed on the waves of the breaking slop diarrhea. The patriot is grounded. Now, relatedly, there's an interesting little essay here, blog post, article, written by John Schweppe. He says, the unwritten rule a former White House staffer forgot. So we're going to get two things. We're going to get what Huntsman is talking about here, where you have the eventual diaspora of 47 of the 47th administration alumni who go back into the private sector. You're also going to have another type that already exists. It'll continue to exist. A cautionary tale for young folks hoping for long, successful careers in Washington. I was fired from a campaign once. Okay, that's not really true. I was put on a performance improvement plan and told a raise wasn't coming, but I could see the writing on the wall. The candidate wasn't very happy with me, so I resigned and wished him the best of luck. Was I happy? Of course not. I remember having lots of opinions, but I didn't say a word publicly. When reporters called, I praised the candidate and stuck to my line. I was pursuing other opportunities. And a month later, I hopped on a different campaign for a different public office. There is an unwritten rule when you work in politics: don't criticize your boss or your former colleagues after you move on. That's especially true when you work in an administration. You are entrusted with a position serving the American people that comes with credentialing and all sorts of career benefits after you leave. That's part of the deal. But using your former position as currency to counter-signal your former colleagues and undermine their work is duplicitous and disloyal. The people you served alongside were your comrades in arms, and they're still in the arena, wrestling with the compromises, the pressures, the personalities, the legal constraints, and the plain political reality of governing. You, meanwhile, Joe Kent, have usually moved on to something more comfortable, a better title, often a lot more money, and far more freedom to render judgment from the cheap seats. It's easy to forget. The only reason anyone cares what we think after we leave government is that somebody once gave us the chance to serve in the first place. The credential is borrowed capital. And yes, loyalty is owed. That's not to say you can never disagree with former bosses or even with administration policy. But your former status makes you of particular interest to journalists and activists looking to stoke division and undermine the agenda. Looking at you, Tucker Carlson. If you allow yourself to be used in this way, you are demonstrating poor judgment and, if we're being honest, a lack of character. That's why I've found Dean Ball's trajectory since leaving the Trump White House increasingly troubling. I just got to give a shout out to him here for putting Ball's trajectory together like that. Excellent, excellent writing. In July of 2025, President Trump released America's AI Action Plan. By its nature, it was an administration-wide undertaking. The plan emerged from a White House process that pulled in the Office of Science and Technology Policy, senior presidential advisors, and departments and agencies across the federal government. Ball was, without question, an important participant. At the time, he usually described the accomplishment collectively, which was exactly right. Administrations make policy as teams. Presidents set priorities, senior officials give direction, staff research, negotiate, write, and revise. Agencies bring expertise, lawyers scrutinize language, political officials settle disagreements. The policy belongs to the entire administration. It does not belong to one staffer. When Ball left the White House shortly after the plan came out, there was little reason to expect a rupture. He said plainly that he wasn't leaving over a policy disagreement and spoke warmly about his former colleagues in the administration's AI agenda. That's how the process is supposed to work. Staffers come and go. Leaving doesn't require silence, and it doesn't necessarily require permanent agreement. Then the story started to change. Soon after departing, Ball sat for extended interviews about how the Trump White House made AI policy. He began narrating the plan in unusually personal terms. For the vast majority of the process, he personally held the pen. He had significant latitude to design the review method and structure the clearance process, and all AI-related responsibilities had been handed to him. Again and again, the story slid toward the first-person singular. And then the simplest version of all. I wrote the plan. There's an enormous distance between I was the primary staff writer of the president's AI action plan and I wrote the plan. One describes a serious staff job, the other quietly claims authorship and ownership. That distinction matters because Ball would increasingly use his association with that very plan as the credential from which he criticized the people still implementing President Trump's AI agenda. And notice where this duplicitous little faggot, notice what angle he starts taking on the AI agenda. The clearest break came during the administration's dispute with Anthropic. There were real policy questions on the table. The Defense Department, the War Department, took the view that a company supplying advanced AI to the American military shouldn't get to impose certain limits on lawful military uses. Anthropic disagreed. Reasonable people could argue it either way, and Ball was perfectly entitled to line up with Anthropic. But he went well past saying his former colleagues had gotten a national security dispute wrong. In a March 2026 essay titled Claude, C-L-A-W-E-D, he built the whole piece around the death of the American Republic. He opened with something deeply personal, watching his father die, and transferred the image of the death rattle to the country itself. America, he argued, was effectively sitting in hospice. The Trump administration's handling of Anthropic was offered as a visible symptom of that decline. He described American policymaking as increasingly unpredictable, arbitrary, and thuggish, and closed with an invitation to, quote, mourn the republic that was. 7 months after walking out of the Trump White House, a former staffer was using the conduct of the administration he had just served as the central illustration in an essay comparing modern American government to a dying patient. Good grief. That's not, my old team got this one wrong. That's a total civilizational indictment. And then he took that indictment national. The very next day, The Atlantic published a major interview framed as a dire warning from the tech world, noting that Ball had helped devise much of the Trump administration's AI policy. 3 days later, he appeared on the Ezra Klein Show, introduced as the senior AI policy advisor and primary staff writer of the AI Action Plan, who was, quote, pissed at the Trump administration. His value to these platforms rested squarely on the credential the White House had given him. The pattern continued. Through the spring and summer, Ball kept criticizing the administration's handling of frontier AI. He argued that its emerging regulatory approach contradicted its own deregulatory principles, that senior officials lacked understanding of the technology, and that the government's own actions were undercutting the central goal of American technological leadership. The asymmetry became impossible to ignore. Months earlier, I wrote the plan. Now the people implementing the plan were portrayed as arbitrary, incoherent, and damaging to America's innovation environment. A little over a year after helping shape the plan, Ball now holds a senior role at one of the companies that plan was meant to unleash, with a bigger title, a bigger paycheck, and a national megaphone. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Government officials leave for industry all the time. But it adds another layer to this story. The experience and credibility gained in government are part of what makes someone attractive to companies affected by the policies he once helped write. Borrowed capital, again. But instead of producing more humility about criticizing the people still doing the government jobs, the conflict intensified, with Ball continuing his near-daily rhetorical assault on the administration. The ex-Republican staffer publicly repudiating Republicans. A grift as old as time. This is the heart of the problem. Ball stopped being a former Trump official who occasionally disagreed with his old team. He became one of its most useful outside critics, precisely because media outlets could introduce him as Trump's own former AI advisor. The borrowed capital was spent against the institution and the colleagues who had lent it. The unwritten rule, which shall henceforth be called the Dean Ball Rule, is not a gag order. It's simpler and harder. Remember whose capital you are spending, and be slow and reluctant before you turn it against the people who entrusted it to you. Ball ignored this rule, which says a lot about his judgment and even more about his character. Young staffers Flash from the Harmon!
I mean, is he wrong? No. Perhaps 12 years late, but not wrong. I suppose he is saying it's a bad thing. He's not quite on the ball. Also, I love how Bale is anti-Trump.
Dale let you down and broke the joke. Thank you for the 1488. Young staffers hoping to enjoy long, successful careers in Washington would be wise to do the opposite. John Schweppe is a senior advisor at American Principles Project. He previously served as senior policy advisor to Chairman Andrew N. Ferguson at the Federal Trade Commission. He is the author of the Populist Solutions Substack. It's just very notable to me that you have guys like this Dean Ball character. You have the worst shit libs in the world, Ezra Klein and such, Matt Iglesias. And then you have the super-based right-wingers who somehow have all consolidated around the same political stance of anti-Trump, anti-data centers, anti-Palantir, like surveillance state. Like when you wind up on the same side as people like Matt Iglesias and Dario Amodei and Dean Ball, like if you wind up on the same side as them on something as substantive as AI policy, then like how is that not like a major red flag? It's bizarre to me because I've followed the whole effective altruism thing kind of from afar, but I've watched it and paid attention to it. Dean Ball!
Y'all niggas need to shut the fuck up and get off D's balls.
That sounds so good. So good in Dale's voice. Dean Ball is here. He found us. Dean, you're a faggot. Oh. Yeah, I've followed this effective altruism thing for a long time. And I know these people. I know exactly what sort of person they are. They are the soulless, rationalist golems that people like Tucker Carlson can't stand. And yet somehow people like Tucker Carlson have wound up doing their bidding. All right, on to better things. The press following around the most transparent president in history. He has done it again. He has done it yet again. Look at him. Yes, of course that's him. The permanent center of attention.
You might take a look at the facade of the White House.
In an alternate life, he would have been totally happy as a tour guide. Look at this. Look at that. How does he do it? Just incredible. Incredible. You even got the plane in the background up here. Perfectly framed. What a shot. What a shot. What a man. Neolithic aura farmer. Incredible. Just incredible work. Mr. President, you're amazing. All right, here's the new slur. A new slur has arrived, being used by Border Patrol and ICE. Listen to this.
And we're gonna close this. Whose backpack is that? Tom backpack?
Did you?
Yeah.
There was a guy, I'm pretty sure he's wet. He was just sitting in that minivan.
There's one right there.
Okay, great talk. Del Rio QR stuff.
It looked like a tonk in the driver's seat.
Probably was.
A tonk! What is a tonk? Well, it comes from U.S. Border Patrol. It's the sound emitted when you smack a beaner in the skull with a mag light. The most common consensus among agents and investigators is that tonk is an onomatopoeic word mimicking the sound of a heavy metal flashlight or baton striking a migrant's head. Tonk, 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 tonk. Tonka trucks. I noticed another one in here. Where was it? He said, this one here. There was a guy, I'm pretty sure he's wet. Does that mean what I think it means? Is that a wetback reference? I'm pretty sure he's wet. An entire new language. See, this is what Donald Trump has brought to us. He's brought to us a brand new industry that has its own language. They're teaching us slurs we could have never imagined. Tonk. Incredible. Incredible. COD lobbies IRL. Yeah. The July naturalization stats just dropped. If you're not following America First Insight, then you really have no idea what's happening right now. And I can't take your opinions on anything election or immigration related seriously. The July naturalization stats just dropped. Only 16,514 people were naturalized. If you annualize that rate, it's sub 200K naturalizations annually. Now, you may not have any context for that. You may hear that and you may think, holy shit, naturalizing 200,000 people a year? That's so many. Well, this is the lowest number of naturalizations proportionally since Johnson. The third lowest since Wilson.
I bet the maggots are also wet when they hear ice tonk some tongs.
Yeah, the maggots. There's got to be something in there. Magalites. It's the sound that the magalite makes when you thonk when you thonk a beaner on the noggin. But here you go. Here's the visual depiction of it. Going all the way back to Woodrow Wilson. Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, JFK, Johnson, Nixon, Carter, Reagan, H.W. Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump 1, Biden, and the July rate for Trump 2. Now, obviously, they have to continue this. This has to be more than just a 1 month aberration. So we will continue to monitor these things. But Seth Levy says from every angle, Trump is collapsing net migration, the growth of the non-native born U.S. population. An unseen one said, and the way he is doing it will last for generations. The Dems won't just be able to flip a switch to return to the Biden era of mass illegal immigration. They'll have to actively dismantle the entire system Trump is building, and each step they take will create massive political pushback as if the Dems are dismantling Social Security. He's built an industry of deportation. There's a lot of federal funding associated, directed toward that. He also, underappreciated thing, I think, about the Lake and Riley Act that was passed really early on in his second term here, or his third term, was it, I can't remember the exact details of it, but it basically created an additional legislative pretext that obligates the federal government to enforce immigration law. And so they were basically like saying, legislate on me harder, daddy. But what that means is that opens up space for future lawsuits in a hypothetical future where there's an administration that's falling short. There's now a basis for suing the federal government for not enforcing immigration law. Now, here we go. The new White House cyber privateering construct just dropped. Wake up, babe. Expanding capabilities to combat transnational cyber-enabled crime. Please let us do cyberkinetic hybrid operations too. Trigger pullers can be Title 10 or 50 USG. Yes, great point here, Joshua Steinman. Ryan, the first step is thank you, where do I sign up? Not this doesn't go far enough. Very, very important observation. The first step is thank you, where do I sign up? Not this doesn't go far enough. Now, I think Ryan Lackey probably means well here. I don't know who he is, but I'll assume that he means well. But I know there's a whole bunch of people who don't, who they think they get moral cred for saying, this doesn't go far enough. No, you don't get moral cred for saying this doesn't go far enough. You get put in the faggot bin. So what is this? Expanding capabilities to combat transnational cyber-enabled crime. Look at all of these memorandum for the Vice President and Secretaries of State, Treasury, War, Attorney General, Commerce, Energy, Homeland Security, President-in-Chief, Assistant to the President and Chief of Staff, Director of National Intelligence, Assistant to the President for Science and Technology, Director of the CIA, Director of OMB, Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, Assistant to the President and Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor, National Cyber Director, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Director of the NSA. Transnational criminal organizations pose a growing threat to American citizens, businesses, and national security. These organizations conduct sustained cyber campaigns to perpetrate frauds that undermine American prosperity, security, and freedom. Through Executive Order 14390 of March 6, 2026, Combating Cybercrime, Fraud, and Predatory Schemes Against American Citizens, I directed the federal government to take various actions to combat cyber-enabled crime harming American citizens. This memorandum expands the fight against TCO-perpetrated cybercrime by incorporating the ingenuity of the private sector. The American private sector is the most innovative and technologically advanced in the world, and its scale, speed, and capacity secure a critical offensive cyber advantage for the United States. Yet, American businesses' innovative capabilities have historically been underutilized in efforts to identify and disrupt criminal networks operating in cyberspace. Thus, it is the policy of the United States to use all instruments of national power, including the innovative capabilities of the private sector, to combat cybercrime. By partnering with vetted United States companies subject to the direction and oversight of the federal government, we will enhance our ability to counter TCO threats and combat transnational cybercrime, fraud, and other predatory schemes against American citizens. Now, you, good Labians, should probably know what transnational cybercrime, fraud, and other predatory schemes against American citizens implies. So I'm not going to read through the whole rest of it, but quick summary here from Grok. Key points. Companies must meet strict vetting, technical, and security standards and operate only with government approval. Operations target foreign criminal groups, not foreign governments, and include safeguards against targeting U.S. persons or causing critical outcomes. For example, loss of life or actions amounting to use of force. And the goal is to leverage private sector cyber capabilities to disrupt fraud, cybercrime, and related threats against America. So this is the modern sort of equivalent of letters of marque, this is Marque spelled M-A-R-Q-U-E, which are directly in the Constitution, that the federal government could authorize at the time private warships, which were basically like the weapons of mass destruction of the day. They could authorize these privateers to go after pirates or other foreign actors and attack them, take their stuff, help police the shipping lanes and such. So this is like the digital version of it now, authorizing private actors to essentially engage in military combat with transnational criminal organizations. With I'm sure there's going to be federal like bounties and stuff that private hackers can go after. And it's interesting. You think about all these nations that you normally hear about the hacking. There's like some hacking team from North Korea or Iran or Venezuelan cybercrime people. And it's like, that's kind of weird, isn't it? You have all these like backwards, insular, totally outside the modern world nations that are also the ones that are like the most sophisticated hackers and cybercrime perpetrators. I remember being, before I woke up, before I took the red pill, I remember thinking that was kind of odd. It's weird that like Iran and North Korea they're like the best hackers in the world, and there's just like nothing we can do about it. Us poor United States sitting here at the behest of North Korean hackers. And then once the whole City of London thing came into view for me, I was like, oh, I see what this is. These are contracts. These are like the hacking groups in these other hostile nations, the axis of evil nations, are these are like subcontractors for the transnational criminal organizations, the cartels, and this is all part of the shadow government, the shadow empire. Shout out Jason Miranchuk. So speaking of that, look what dropped yesterday. The DOJ unsealed a superseding indictment charging 17 members of the Iran-based Mabna Institute for a multi-year campaign, roughly 2013 to 2017, in related activity that compromised approximately 8,000 academic email accounts across 144 U.S. and 178 foreign universities, plus companies and agencies, stealing greater than 31 terabytes of research and intellectual property at an estimated value of $3.4 billion. Many actions were conducted for the IRGC or Iranian clients. Rewards of up to $10 million are offered for 5 individuals. 17 Iranians are charged with conducting massive cyber theft campaign on behalf of the IRGC and other Iranian entities. 17. How many coincidences, guys? How many? More details here that I got from Grok. So the group ran a coordinated spear phishing campaign that targeted professor email accounts to steal academic research, theses, dissertations, journals, and other intellectual property. So they compromised roughly 8,000 professor accounts after targeting over 100,000 worldwide. So it was 144 U.S. universities, 178 foreign universities, plus at least 42 U.S. companies, 11 foreign companies, 5 U.S. federal and state agencies, for example, the Labor Department, the FERC, Hawaii, and Indiana, and then NGOs such as the UN and UNICEF. HBO was also targeted. Many of the hacks were done on behalf of the IRGC, or Iranian government and university clients. The Mabna Institute was founded around 2013 specifically to help Iranian institutions acquire Western scientific resources they could not legally access. Stolen material was sometimes sold through Iranian websites. This updates a 2018 indictment that charged 9 of the same people. The new filing adds 8 more defendants and more details. The State Department's Rewards for Justice program is offering up to $10 million for information leading to 5 of them. What interesting timing. Here I've been led to believe that Iran has just minded their own business, that There's no reason whatsoever for the United States to have any sort of hostile relationship with them. It's just entirely at the behest of Israel. So, like, was this just like an Israeli operation happening within Iran? I mean, if Israel is deeply embedded in Iran and is using a bunch of Iranian proxies to attack America, then I have no problem with bombing Iran, with bankrupting Iran. Like, if you tell me that this is an Israeli thing, then you're not going to tell me that, well, then the administration's doing everything wrong. I kind of reject the premise that this is an Israeli thing. Because I think that the Israeli thing is much more like this. The extent that the Israeli thing is a problem is because it's just like another tendril on the same beast. But all of this is happening as the Iran's central bank governor, Abdul Nasser Hemati, publicly acknowledged that the Islamic Republic's oil exports have fallen to zero.
And this is the update we have from Yemen. Of course, the IRGC's Houthi...
There's a few interesting details in this beyond just that specific comment, so I'll let this play here for a minute.
Proxies have been clashing with Saudi Arabian forces and the Yemeni forces. Well, some good news we have also from Yemen. The Yemeni forces have now killed at least 2 Iranian IRGC members who were basically there to help the Houthis, and they effed around and then they found out. There have also been a number of others who've been injured. More than 200 Houthi operatives have been killed over the last 24 hours. The Yemeni government forces are becoming extremely confident, even more than the Lebanese ones. And the Lebanese have the backing of America and Israel. Yemen obviously have the backing of Saudi Arabia and obviously UAE for different reasons. And they have carried out 181 operations in a single day, by the way, all that. And they continue to destroy the Islamic regime's operatives in their country. So
I guess you guys know who this guy is, Tusi. I've never heard of him, never encountered him before until someone put him on my timeline. I don't remember who it was, but it's got interesting insight here.
Hopefully soon the Houthis will be completely pushed out and wiped out, which means they're going to have to go somewhere else. They can't stay in Yemen. The Lebanese armed forces are trying their best to slowly push out Hezbollah. It's gone okay, but it's never going to be smooth in Lebanon, because Lebanon as a country is still mostly built. Compared to Yemen, southwest of Yemen, you've got a huge open area of deserts. You've got a lot of holes, a lot of caves in the mountains, and so it's slightly more difficult. But the problem with built areas is that you have tunnel networks in cities. And that's the problem that the IDF had, and also the Lebanese armed forces when it comes to Hezbollah. But they will find a way, and they are continuing to do that. The IRGC are not able to send enough financial aid and weapons to their proxies. They have to keep everything in Iran because they are also running out. For the first time in the history of the Islamic Republic, we've had a regime official senior figure, and that is the governor of the central bank, who I believe is now going to be in massive trouble for what he's just done, Nasser Hemati. Mr. Hemati went on the state TV and admitted defeat, saying that Iranian oil exports, just like a lot of the neighbors, have now stopped. Zero. So when President Trump and Marco Rubio and others were saying that the US blockade is working now, we finally found a way. It's one-sided. Iranian oil is not getting out. They're not making any revenue. You have the likes of CNN and CBC in Canada and the BBC in the UK all saying, there's no evidence, it's just nonsense. The regime in Iran has won. They're not just winning, they've won. Americans have been defeated. It's done now. It's over. Now, the regime in Iran have finally admitted that, actually, it's kind of working, and we are in big trouble.
Just for some context, oil exports were a major but not dominant slice of Iran's economy in 2025, roughly 12 to 14% of GDP by revenue, while the broader oil gas extraction sector accounted for about 23 to 25% of GDP by official Iranian statistics. The Iran Statistical Center of Iran reported that the oil sector made up 24.7% of GDP in the Iranian year ending March 2025, calendar year 1403, with petroleum extraction growing 6.2%. So take those numbers for whatever they're worth. But calendar year 2025, crude and condensate export revenues were estimated at $45 to $48 billion. So 25% of GDP, more or less.
Let's quickly go to the governor of the central bank, and this statement will make him face the consequences, because the IRGC will not be happy about what he just said.
So he said, there's no doubt we have limitations. After all the countries that are now our neighbors are the same. We speak with the Qataris.
Wait for it.
We speak with the Iraqis. We speak with any of them. Right now, the revenues of countries like Qatar and Iraq from their exports have practically dropped to zero. And well, the same has happened to us. We're not exporting oil. That's the reality. But we have made the necessary preparations, he says.
So that's the fascinating part.
Now, one of the things that they do not have access to right now, you remember the MOU that they signed a while back, and part of the MOU was that if they stuck by their side of the MOU, one of the things that they would unlock would be regional investment. Up to, I don't remember what the number was. I remember everyone freaked out because they said, oh, Trump's going to give them, it was like, is it $15 billion or I don't remember what the number was, but everyone freaked out. It was a huge number, and they're like, oh, Trump is going to tell Jerome Powell or tell Kevin Warsh to print these billions of dollars to give to Iran. What a catastrophe this is. And no, it was just, they were saying, we will let up sanctions and allow your neighbors to come invest in you to the tune of up to that amount. So not only have they lost, I don't know, approximately a quarter of their economy, but they also don't have access to outside money like Qatar and what was the other one he mentioned? Iraq do. So Qatar and Iraq have avenues to make up for this. Obviously, Russia and China can do some stuff, but they're pretty clearly staying very hands-off, generally speaking, with this. And then Scott Bessent has declared absolute and complete firebombing of the Iranian economy. And you know what that means. So if they're looking for outside support, like one of the big things they have to do with these dark, shadowy financial networks is sometimes it's just like you just move something. You just kind of go boop and you see what moves. You create a chain of reactions and you test to see, okay, so in the event that this happens, this person's going to do this person's going to do this, and this person's going to do this. This is their network that they've planned out in an emergency. So now we'll trace all of that, and then you run through the probabilities and the implications. And so that's part of what they've been doing, is mapping out all of these different financial networks and gradually constraining them and cornering them, which by necessity, Iran is not some standing independent nation. They're basically like a pirates. They're occupied by a pirate state that is backed and funded in large part by old European financial networks. So those are the financial networks that Scott Bessent is made into his sandbox. Pardon the pun. This is an important from Andrew Colvett. He said, this is a pretty important story from Axios on how U.S. Central Command has quietly established a shipping corridor through the Strait of Hormuz, averaging about 10 million barrels of oil a day, half of the pre-war level, injected into the global energy markets. So even Axios is now reporting this as if it's some like original discovery that they've made, when frickin' Trump came out and said this like, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks ago. This has been going on for months now. Key quote, "We have been controlling the southern lane of the Strait of Hormuz for 2 months now. The IRGC can be a nuisance, but they don't control the strait. We do. The U.S. military did this through a multi-week campaign to blind Iranian radar surveillance capabilities so they can't detect shipping vessels traveling in single file lines near the Oman coast. U.S. Air Force assets have also been deployed, shooting down 8 Iranian drones and 2 cruise missiles. Meanwhile, Secretary Scott Bessent says resources are surging to the region to construct overland oil pipelines to diminish the importance of the strait over time." And from Axios, it says, the U.S. military has quietly established a shipping corridor in and out of the Strait of Hormuz to transport millions of barrels of oil each day, a notable success, even as the broader war remains at a stalemate, 2 U.S. officials told Axios. It's a stalemate, right. Under the operation, which has been underway for the last several weeks, 15 to 20 tankers have entered and exited the strait each night through a southern channel along the coast of Oman. About 10 million barrels of oil a day, roughly half the pre-war volume, are being transported out of the strait and injected into the global energy market. And obviously, U.S. Oil companies have been selling into this market, making money hand over fist, which is why Trump has also been blasting on them for their threatening to come after them for not bringing oil prices down or bringing gas prices down fast enough. But then there's also, so if there's about 10 million barrels of oil a day coming out of this passageway through the strait, I think there's also somewhere in the vicinity of 5 to 6 million barrels that are already at capacity. They're already at the capacity of 5 to 6 million barrels a day going overland, and they're just going to continue building that up. Mellon says this is textbook Desert Storm stuff that Norman Schwarzkopf did. They also did this thing called Imminent Thunder, where they threatened an amphibious landing, which was just a bluff that worked. Huh, that sounds very familiar, isn't that? Isn't that interesting? Trust plan czar. Zoomers love Bush. Yeah. So the full story is here from Axios if you want to read that. But I mean, honestly, this is kind of old news. This is stuff that if you've been following the astrolabe, I've been doing my best to draw from as many sources as I can to tell this story over the past several months. So I think to most of us, this is kind of like just confirmation of things that we already knew. But everything is proceeding as we have foreseen. Now, here's this story about Air Force One. For weeks, the White House has said President Trump flew from Turkey on the former Air Force One after the newer Air Force One jet gifted by Qatar flew to Britain separately. But that's not the case. In reality, Trump took a third jet, unbeknownst to media and some staff. So this tweet thread here is from August 10th. If you remember, right after Trump was inaugurated, Qatar, it might have even been between the election and the inauguration, I don't remember. But Qatar gifted him a new Air Force One. And we had a little rage cycle for a while as everyone got really mad about Trump accepting gifts as the president. Trump being the one to accept gifts on behalf of the federal government from our allies. So, but they still have the other Air Force One. So he's been using this new one, but they still have this other one. So an Iranian assassination threat against President Trump prompted an extraordinary operation last month, this is in July, in which he flew secretly from Turkey on an alternate military aircraft while the White House said he was aboard Air Force One. The Washington Post has learned. How did this happen? We're told that Trump boarded the legacy Air Force One in Turkey. But moments later, he secretly moved from that jet to a smaller C-32A that was parked nearby. He moved from one jet to the next aboard an airport catering truck out of sight from the media. The reporting adds a significant new layer of understanding to President Trump's trip, which already was complicated by a significant threat from Iran. Media outlets have reported for weeks that Trump flew aboard the old Air Force One. So Trump had posted a truth where he said that the new Air Force One was going to be used by someone else for this other thing, and so he was going to be flying on the old Air Force One. And so he boarded the old Air Force One, then he snuck out the back and went and boarded a third aircraft. And that third aircraft and the old Air Force One both flew to the same location. And then when he landed, he came back into the old Air Force One and exited off of it. And the people who were on it didn't even know that he wasn't there. The reporting also seems sure to bring new scrutiny to the Air Force One jet gifted by Qatar and the White House's decision to fly it to Turkey, a country bordering Iran. The White House in a statement today defended the new Air Force One jet and the security measures it has. And yada, yada, yada. So then, there's a little more details here. There was a threat against President Trump's life while he was in Turkey for NATO, and it involved a shoulder-to-air missile, possibly targeting Air Force One.
President's life while he was at the NATO summit in Turkey.
It comes as President Trump says the U.S. still has total control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Ying's joining us live from Tel Aviv with the very latest. Hey, Trey. Yeah, hey guys, good morning. It's a story that has captured the world attention this week. A threat by the Iranian regime on President Trump's life in Turkey last month. The Wall Street Journal reports it was actually Israeli intelligence that tipped off the administration to a specific danger. The report explains the sourcing on this information, saying the U.S. official said Israel briefed the Trump administration on the intelligence, which included a threat to use shoulder-to-air missiles to target Air Force One. Ultimately, the president was reportedly moved from Air Force One to another plane using a catering truck. Fox has not independently confirmed that.
So there's the catering truck back there.
That detail.
Mr. President, can you tell us about your ride on the airport catering truck in Turkey? Why did you need to do that?
Well, it's only up to Secret Service. I just follow what they'd like to do. So I go by Secret Service and the military. They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane, equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say.
Okay, so then Midas Touch here, little enemy report, says this appears to be the order of operations. First, Trump flies to Turkey on the new Qatari-gifted Air Force One for the NATO summit. Then, an Iranian assassination threat triggers a secret deception operation. Security officials devise a plan to conceal which aircraft Trump is actually traveling on. The Qatari-gifted Air Force One leaves Turkey first without Trump. Trump publicly boards the legacy Air Force One in Ankara, walking up the stairs and waving for cameras, creating the appearance that this is his plane home. Trump then secretly exits Air Force One through the other side of the aircraft and gets into an airport catering truck raised to the plane's door. The catering truck drives Trump to a smaller Air Force C-32A, a modified Boeing 757 parked nearby. Trump secretly boards the C-32A. War Secretary Pete Hegseth also boards separately. Reporters and some White House staff board the legacy Air Force One, apparently unaware that Trump is no longer aboard. They're instructed to close their window shades. You may remember all that reporting from that time. The legacy Air Force One takes off as a decoy and eventually uses the AF1 call sign despite Trump not being aboard. Trump's actual C-32A flies secretly to Britain under the nondescript call sign Reach 18. They couldn't have done 17. It would have been too obvious. With its normal flight tracking systems reportedly switched off. Trump arrives at RAF Mildenhall in Britain on the C-32A shortly before the decoy Air Force One arrives. Trump somehow transfers back onto the legacy Air Force One after landing. The Post says exactly how this transfer occurred remains unclear. Trump then emerges from the legacy Air Force One in front of cameras, making it appear as though that was the aircraft he had flown from Turkey. Trump boards the Qatari-gifted Air Force One in Britain and finally flies back to Washington with the press and staff. Remember when Trump told the reporters on the plane, "I go, you go," in regard to the plane being targeted? It actually seems Trump left and endangered the lives of everyone on board. So here's where the libs all lost their minds. This is what Trump said. He said, "To honor our brave men and women of the military, we're sending the brand new and truly spectacular Air Force One to Mildenhall Air Force Base in the United Kingdom to give them a chance to tour the aircraft. Everybody is so excited and we thought they should be the first. For old time's sake, we'll be taking the former Air Force One from Turkey to Mildenhall, a short trip that is totally worth doing in order to give our great military heroes a chance to appreciate our beautiful new addition to the Air Force fleet." No president in history would use others as a shield without their knowledge of the danger. This is disgraceful cowardice. This was how the libs responded to it. There was, I got one of these out of order here. Jake Tapper, Snake Fapper, says, flew to Afghan with different presidents on Air Force One. An insurgent missile struck Bagram one way before landing. Weather was bad, so planned Marine One trip to Kabul was scrubbed. We were with the president the whole time. Our safety wasn't treated any differently from his. We were never decoys. Obviously, the life of the president is paramount, and previous White Houses have used deception to protect the president's life. But no officials I've spoken to have ever before heard of using an Air Force One full of White House staff and journalists as a decoy during an imminent threat. These people are insane. Completely insane. We, the media, deserve to be treated as the president. No, the president shouldn't engage in some sort of decoy operation to prevent himself from being assassinated, which, like he said, I guarantee you this is exactly how it was, too. It wasn't like Trump was the one making this call. The military and the Secret Service would have been like, "No, you're doing this. This is our obligation to you. You have to do this." He wouldn't have had any say-so in it. He just did. They've gamed this out. I'm sure this has happened many times, and it's never been a story. They would have gamed this sort of thing out. They would have contingency plans for exactly a situation like this. And so, no, you're not going to broadcast to the entire world where the president actually is, so that you can satisfy the feelings of some media people. These people are completely out of their minds. Now, there's some more details here for the New York Times. Even some cabinet members didn't join Trump's secret flight. Here's who did. When President Trump sneaked out of Turkey last month in a clandestine operation, he brought a select few with him on the secret flight. The White House aides Natalie Harp. See, this is where all of the obsessive focus on Natalie Harp came from. It came from this story. Dan Scavino and Walt Nauta. Nauta? This guy here. This is Walt. Who is Walt? Waltine Torre Nauta Jr. Dave combobulated!
I work way too much to catch these live this time of year, so I'm checking in to drop a little paper. Catch you on the replay tomorrow.
Patriot, thank you, sir, for the $100. My man, Dave combobulated. That deserves an Erica. I was starting to wonder if I was going to need to end things a little earlier here than I intended, but Dave combobulated, picking up the slack. The rest of you, be like Dave combobulated. Go to tips.kingpill.com. Support the stream. So Walt Nauta, while a petty officer in the U.S. Navy, he was Trump's valet at the White House. After Trump's term ended, he continued to work for him at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and residence, and since 2025, he has served as director of Oval Office operations and deputy assistant to the president. In June of 2023, he was indicted alongside Trump in a federal case that accused him of helping conceal classified documents Trump had retained in Mar-a-Lago. He pleaded not guilty, and a superseding indictment brought the total charges against him to 8. Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the case in July 2024, ruling that special counsel Jack Smith had been appointed unlawfully. After Trump won the 2024 election, the Justice Department dropped its appeal, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit formally dismissed the charges against him on February 11, 2025. So he was born in Guam. Never heard of this guy before, but he is a longtime loyalist. So it was Natalie Harp, Dan Scavino, and Walt Nauta, as well as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who were all traveling with the president on a military jet. 2 cabinet members, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, left the country on the decoy flight, which was an older model of Air Force One, the U.S. official and second official said. That plane carried other aides who had been attending the NATO summit in Ankara, along with journalists. So Marco Rubio and Scott Bessent were there in the plane with the journalists. Somehow they see themselves as even more important than them. Mr. Trump had said he would be taking the older plane for old time's sake for the first leg of the trip home. But the reality was that U.S. officials had determined there was a credible threat to Air Force One, so he boarded the decoy Air Force One in front of the cameras. Joining him on the other plane were Ms. Harp, his ever-present aide, Mr. Nauta, his longtime body man, who now is the head of Oval Office operations, and Mr. Scavino, a deputy White House chief of staff and head of presidential personnel who has handled Mr. Trump's social media for years. Unlike Mr. Trump and the other passengers, Mr. Hegseth was seen publicly boarding the military jet, which apparently was part of the deception plan. The reporters traveling on the older Air Force One were instructed to lower their window shades without an explanation given. In hindsight, it kept them from catching a glimpse of Mr. Trump leaving the plane. So other names that were on the decoy plane: Stephen Miller, Stephen Chung, Will Scharf, the staff secretary, Deputy National Security Advisor Michael Needham. You know that name. Deputy Chief of Staff Richard Walters, aide Christopher Ambrosini, and staff members from the White House advance team. Now, here's Trump's comments afterwards.
No, not surprised. I have a lot of threats. I have a lot of threats that you don't know about. Any consequential president has a lot of threats. Non-consequential presidents don't get threatened. And I think that I'm maybe the most consequential president. There's nobody who's done more than me in a period of almost 6 years. There's nobody.
So true, Mr. President. And then, of course, he dropped this line.
I don't worry about anything, to be honest. Whatever it is, you know my attitude? Whatever.
So true, Mr. President. Now, I'm going to kind of move between a few different stories here. First one, John Solomon on August 11th says Trump administration negotiates removal of nuclear material from covert Syrian site. The Trump administration has reached an agreement with Syria and Israel for the International Atomic Energy Agency to remove nuclear material stored at a covert site in Syria. The deal comes as the Trump administration and the IAEA were rushing to reach a diplomatic agreement to secure the material and resolve the matter before Israel and potentially Turkey get involved over the sensitive site. We think everybody's happy with the result. Hopefully we'll be able to kick off the removal process soon and end it before the end of the year, a U.S. official said. U.S. officials also said the event indicated the growing closeness of the U.S. and the new Syrian government under Ahmed al-Sharaa, according to Axios. The behind-the-scenes exchange of threats and diplomacy over the secret site occurred over months before the resolution was reached weeks ago. The secret nuclear program, which had been developed under the Assad regime with the help of North Korean experts in the mid-2000s, centered on the Al-Kabar reactor, which was mostly destroyed after Israel bombed it in 2007. However, several R&D and storage sites, mostly inactive, reportedly remained. After the toppling of the Assad regime, the IAEA signed an agreement with the new Syrian government allowing it to visit the Al-Kabar reactor and several other sites connected to Syria's prior nuclear activity. One of the facilities Israel was closely monitoring over the past 2 years was called Site 99. According to two Israeli officials, the Assad regime stored nuclear material as part of the Al-Kabar nuclear reactor project. Now, one U.S. official said the material included powder called yellowcake powder, which could be processed and eventually enriched. They also said the Assad regime stored residue and leftovers from the Al-Kabar site at Site 99. While the materials on site cannot be used for a nuclear weapon for a nuclear explosion, they reportedly could be used for a dirty bomb, an explosive device which spreads radioactive material and contaminates the area. There was one other detail in here, I believe. Israel told the Trump administration Israel would not tolerate nuclear material to remain at the site, even threatening to bomb the site again. The U.S. official said, however, they were never close to carrying it out. Several weeks ago, Israelis monitoring the site detected movements that suggested to them the Syrian government was trying to access the nuclear material, according to U.S. and Israeli officials. They were even concerned that Turkey was assisting them to get a hold of the material. The Trump administration asked Israel not to pursue action. Instead, an agreement was signed 3 weeks ago between the IAEA and the Syrian government to remove the nuclear material, though the material has not been removed yet. So then, this from Joe Lange. Hold on one sec here. He says, timing? I just posted why I think Trump deceived the media and secretly left Air Force One on a catering truck in Turkey. He needed to meet someone face-to-face in secret with nobody in the media knowing about it. I speculated it might have been Netanyahu or the new leader of Syria. Turns out it might have been both. Now, I don't know if this is the case. I think there's the possibility that it was as simple as there was a threat to his life, and so they had a contingency plan for that, and it was that simple. He did get to the UK shortly before the decoy plane did. So, but continue with the tweet here. This story is a huge deal. The focus will be on Syria's secret nuclear program, and they even mention help from North Korea. But you know who isn't mentioned? Iran. Who else isn't mentioned? Obama, Hillary, and Uranium 1. We are getting the uranium dust from Syria and eventually Iran to prove that both Obama and Hillary committed treason by arming our enemies with nuclear weapons material and technology. But it's bigger than that. They were both puppets controlled by Prince al-Walid. Obama served 8 years infiltrating our government with Muslim Brotherhood members and sympathizers while doing everything he could to divide the country and destroy the Constitution. Hillary was supposed to serve the next 8 years, further destroying the Constitution, taking away the Second Amendment, getting us into a nuclear war with Russia, destroying both countries. It was al-Walid's 16-year plan. It would destroy Saudi Arabia's two biggest competitors in the world for oil production. At the time, al-Walid's puppet was next in line for the throne in Saudi Arabia. Hillary was never supposed to lose. Trump changed everything. He allied with MBS in Saudi Arabia, who removed al-Walid's puppet Nayef and became crown prince. MBS arrested al-Walid and his puppets in Saudi Arabia shortly after. And the day is coming when al-Walid's two puppets are going to be arrested too. They used the Uranium 1 deal to ship yellowcake uranium to both Iran and North Korea. Iran had a secret nuclear weapon site in Syria. They were developing the dirty bomb that would be detonated in an American city and blamed on Russia, triggering nuclear war. Trump is gathering the uranium dust that can be forensically traced back to the Uranium 1 deal in Syria. He'll soon be collecting it in Iran, and most people don't know that Trump already secretly collected it in North Korea after they made a peace deal. And then there's a Q drop here. They never thought she would lose the 16-year plan to destroy America. Hussein, 8, install rogue ops, leak classified intel and military assets, cut funding to the military, command away from generals, launch the good guy takedown, internal remove, Valerie Jarrett, the sniffer, special access program sell-off, Snowden open source PRISM and Keyscore, catastrophic to U.S. military versus bad actors, plus clowns and no such agency, which is short for NSA, obviously. Target and weaken the conservative base using the IRS and the mainstream media. Open the border, flood illegals, win. ISIS MS-13 fund and install, fear, targeting and removal, domestic assets, etc. Blind eye, North Korea, nuke build. Classified 1, 2, and 3. Blind eye, Iran, fund and supply. Blind eye, classified 23-41. I don't know what some of these things mean. Stage the Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia. Uranium 1, fund and supply Iran and North Korea, plus reduce the U.S. capacity. Kill NASA, prevent space domination, and allow bad actors to take down military satellites. And WW, I'm not sure if that's World War. I can't remember what WW means. Secure comms and install WMDs. Risk of EMP, space origin, helpless. HRC, 8 years, World War III. Death and weapons, real. War, fake and controlled. Population growth control, pocket billions. Eliminate final rogue ops within the government and military. Kill the economy. Starve, need, and enslave. Open borders. Revise constitution. Ban sale of firearms. Install on-team Supreme Court justices. Legal wins across spectrum of challengers. Removal of electoral college. Popular vote is easier manipulation, illegal votes, Soros machines. Limit and remove funding of military. Closure of U.S. military installations. WW. Germany first. And destruction of opposing mainstream media and other news outlets through censoring. Now, I read all of that because this was a Q post from January of 2018. These were the sorts of things that Q was talking about in January of 2018. And it just so happens that all of these different storylines are all meeting together. They're all coming to the surface with all the declassification and all of the stuff happening around Iran. The stuff that the Trump administration keeps bringing up, little names they keep dropping. So I don't know if his narrative that he's putting together here is exactly correct. But I think there's something that seems very plausible about it, especially if you're thinking about MBS. You tie in the Vegas shooting, the connections with MBS on that. You have the Jamal Khashoggi incident with the Washington Post the Washington Post supporter and reporter. And then with Khashoggi, there's another interesting connection with Adnan Khashoggi, who was I believe his cousin or his uncle, who was a close associate and financier for Jeffrey Epstein in the 80s. Now, I saw this with Al-Walid, and let me see, hold on a second. Okay, we'll come back to Al-Walid in just a second. This is related. Kunli Drogba posted this just recently. Major story in recent years is North Korea becoming significantly wealthier and more developed as Kim moves to a model of totalitarian state-directed industrial capitalism with East Asian characteristics. Unsurprisingly, it's working. Isn't there someone you owe an apology to? It's boom time in Pyongyang. GDP for the DPRK has kicked into a higher gear, and if there's any doubt, you can see that from space, that it's getting brighter and brighter at night. You've got the images here. It's a little hard to see. You guys will probably have a hard time seeing it there, but it's definitely clear that it is getting brighter. And it's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day. I was like, I wonder at what point we're going to have some sort of revival happen with North Korea, because there's all the fertility issues in South Korea. They've got one of the worst fertility states in the world right now, and there's something, I don't know completely how to connect this yet. I guess it's the totalitarian state-directed industrial capitalism. There's something about the North Korean model that as it begins to normalize with the rest of the world, it actually has some pretty serious upside because of how in lockstep the entire society is. I mean, it's like to the meme point, but their problem is like an excess of order. And if you just start to pull that back a little bit, that seems to me to be an easier problem to solve than an excess of chaos and trying to impose order again. The American System Juche edition. So I just wanted to mention that. And then there was this from Trump, August 16th. He said, based on my very good relationship with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, I'm not happy with the fact that the United States has long ago agreed to participate in joint military exercises with South Korea. These exercises are not only costly, with much of these costs paid for by the United States of America, as usual, but send a signal that is totally inappropriate and hostile to a country that, as long as Donald J. Trump has been president, has been unthreatening and respectful. So true. Therefore, and based on the fact that it is too late to cancel, I have instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce the joint military exercises. While somewhat unrelated, I recently asked the president of South Korea if they would like to join us in the denuclearization of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and they said, no thanks. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's funny that he says unrelated when it's absolutely 100% related. So, you know, I look at this timing here, that on August 11th, we get this story about them negotiating a removal of the nuclear material from the covert Syrian site that has this direct connection to North Korea. And then a couple of days later, Trump brings up North Korea again, just out of nowhere. Nobody was thinking or talking about North Korea. And then Trump says, in the context of what's happening in Iran, South Korea didn't want to get involved in what's happening in Iran, despite depending heavily upon exports through the Strait of Hormuz. And so now Trump is all of a sudden like, hey, actually, North Korea is not too bad. What did he mean by this? And to the untrained ear, this sounds like a normal answer from Trump, but to those who know about where the material from Uranium 1 ended up, this is extremely juicy. I'm reading a tweet here from Clandestine. Trump brings up both Iran's and North Korea's nuclear weapons in the same breath. Trump has also been working with the new Syrian regime to secure rogue nuclear material at black site facilities. Trump has been securing the material from Uranium 1 in both of his terms. That's what everything revolves around. North Korea in his first term, Iran and Syria in his second. For those who say that it is not happening, it's been happening for 10 plus years. You just didn't notice it. And here's the clip of Trump.
Letters with Kim Jong-un?
Can't tell you that. But I get along with him. And you know what? The fact that I get along with him, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. He has 57 very powerful nuclear weapons. Should have never allowed it to happen.
He has 57 nuclear weapons. This was a bit of breaking news. It was not publicly known how many nuclear weapons North Korea has, but now we know, 57.
Should have never allowed it. If I were president, I wouldn't have allowed it, but he's got them. I get along with him very well. I can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And I know Kim Jong-un very well, and he's going to be fine. As long as we have a smart president, he's going to be fine. If we have a dumb president, then he's probably not going to be so fine.
Are you expecting to meet with him later this year?
Yeah, I will be.
So then he's going to be meeting with him as well. Isn't this interesting? He's also going to be meeting with Xi soon. Ben Shapiro on 2X says that's the rhetorical thing where you mention something by saying you won't mention it. And then there's Chris Christie, who I'm not going to call fat. Yeah. Ben Shapiro on 2X says there's a fun image out there, the world at night stitched together from satellite photos so there's no clouds. The eastern seaboard, southern England, Japan, etc. are solid white, but South Korea is an island, and Egypt clearly hasn't changed in 5,000 years. It's literally just the Nile. You can also spot the Trans-Siberian Railway as a chain of dots. You're getting me excited here. Map maxing? Yeah, the map maxing is going to get me going. So now, let me see here. What did I have next? Okay, we'll come to that in just a moment. First of all, I'm talking about clandestine here. I want to get this one in. The world doesn't know it yet, but the relationship between Trump and MBS will be remembered as the alliance that changed the world. Think Sword Dance 2017. A month after Trump's visit, King Salman rescinded the crown from Mohammed bin Nayef in favor of MBS. This led to the infamous Saudi corruption purge of 2017 and consolidation of power and money within the Saudi royal family. Nayef and his faction were essentially neutralized. Why is this significant to the U.S.? Because in 2015, Trump himself accused the Nayef faction via Prince Al-Walid bin Talal of buying and controlling U.S. politicians. Trump, along with King Salman and MBS, took out the corrupt faction within the Saudi royal family and have been working together ever since to create a new world and peaceful Middle East, which included neutralizing Iran's nuclear capabilities. And the world had no idea that it was happening. Now, I was like, I remember reading about all of this back then, but I didn't have the necessary context to truly appreciate it. And I was like, Prince Al-Walid. I want to hear about. I want to read some more stuff about Al-Walid. Let me search for him and see if there's any other interesting headlines or something that have come up recently regarding Prince Al-Walid. So I search his name on X. Like, I really remember that. I want to know more. And then I discovered why his name was so familiar to me. Look at the first thing that came up. February of 2025. Tucker Carlson sat down and interviewed Prince Al-Walid bin Talal.
The reason I've been so anxious to talk to you is because as someone who's been investing more successfully than almost anyone around the world for 45 years, I think you've got a pretty good handle of what's going on in the world. Are you...
Prince Al-Walid bin Talal is one of the biggest media investors in the world. Here's why he thinks X now dominates everything. Here are the chapter titles. Prince Al-Walid bin Talal's thoughts on Donald Trump, Saudi Arabia's relationship with Israel and Iran, negotiating with Trump, wokeism and transgenderism, Rupert Murdoch, corporate media's left-wing bias, and investing in X. Why are Bezos and Zuckerberg suddenly pro-Trump? Western Europe is very sick. Trump's tariffs, China's DeepSeek, Venezuela's oil reserves, American, Russian, and Chinese imperialism, why Al-Walid refuses to invest in crypto, and the West's drug and alcohol problem. I watched this back when it dropped because I didn't miss anything that came from Tucker back then. I'm now going to have to go back through and listen to this through new ears, I guess, viewing this in a new light. Perhaps that's what we'll do on tomorrow's show, because I don't have time to sit here and go through all of this here tonight. But I stumbled upon this last week and went, holy shit, okay, I need to revisit this. Try to sketch out all of this in retrospect. It'll also be knowing that this is pre-Tucker True now. It'd be interesting to see if there's any little nuggets, little indicators of what was coming in there. Perhaps we'll watch that on the back end of tomorrow's show. We'll see. I've got some other stuff, Bitcoin and Scott Bessent and a few other things already prepared for tomorrow. So we'll see if we have time to watch this. Either way, I'm going to rewatch it myself or listen to it at least and see if we get any nuggets out of it. But we got to keep going because I've got more tonight. Acting Secretary of the Navy Hung Kao. We must never forget the 30 American heroes of Extortion 17. How many of you guys know the story of Extortion 17? Today, I had the honor of spending time with our special operators at Naval Special Warfare Command and was reminded of the courage and sacrifice of our fallen brothers, the families who carry their legacy, and the importance of the cause they gave everything to defend. On August 6, 2026, we mark 15 years since the tragic loss of Extortion 17. On this day in 2011, 30 American servicemen and a U.S. military dog lost their lives when a CH-47 Chinook helicopter, call sign Extortion 17, was shot down in Afghanistan. Pi Squared says, me. So I remember like the vague outlines of this. Like I remember sort of hearing about it when it happened, but had no context for it or anything. And I was reminded of it now. This was brought back to my attention. I found the Hung Kao tweet later. It was brought back to my attention because I saw This, I guess you guys can't see. This is a tweet from Kash Patel the same day. You guys should understand the connection with Kash Patel here after some of the other stuff we've talked about recently. Extortion 17. Obviously, 17. What do they mean by this? But MJ Truth Ultra here says Kash Patel shows a photo of a gravesite on the anniversary of Extortion 17. They're all fucked. They know he knows. August 6, 2011, a CH-47 Chinook helicopter call sign Extortion 17 was shot down by insurgents in Afghanistan, or so they said. This resulted in the deaths of 30 U.S. service members, including 15 members of SEAL Team 6. Alan Perot, a falconer who worked in Afghanistan, stated that Barack Obama had SEAL Team 6 members killed to cover up the alleged non-involvement of the SEALs in the actual killing of Osama bin Laden during the 2011 raid. More specifically, Perot claimed to have documents proving that the SEALs did not kill bin Laden and that the Obama administration paid $152 billion to Iran to cover it up. If you haven't listened to Perot's recorded conversation with Congressman Kurt Weldon and attorney Brian S. Ettinger in 2011, you need to. There's a link to it here. It's 11 and a half minutes long. I'm not going to sit and go through it. You're essentially you're just getting a firsthand explanation from the guy of his story. And Kurt Weldon here is very, very agitated. Like, he's like, my family's in danger. I need you to get this information to me. He's very, very, very agitated. But one of the things that Alan Perot here points out, is that falconing was a huge vector for money laundering, essentially, within the Arab world. Which makes sense. Like a trained bird of prey, what is that thing worth? It's kind of like art. It becomes a great vector for money laundering. And so he is like a lifelong Arabist and spent all of his time in and around them. And he was reporting at the time, he was saying, reporting reports of Osama bin Laden being in Iran. He was like, Osama bin Laden is in Iran. They're the ones that are sheltering him. They're the ones that are taking care of him. And then after his supposed capture and kill by SEAL Team 6, he came out and he said, no, the dude had dialysis. He wasn't killed. He was on dialysis. He was almost dead. He wasn't killed by SEAL Team 6. Now, of course, if that's true, then it would introduce a lot of questions about Robert O'Neill. I think there's lots of places that could go where I could speculate about it. I won't do that now. But I could see a world wherein he fully believes that he did actually kill him, that the story went down exactly as it is, but there was chicanery happening behind the scenes. And there was the whole thing of him, his rapid burial at sea was very odd. But if this is even remotely true, then Kash Patel posting this like this, and all of the other stuff going on with Iran and North Korea and Uranium 1 and all of this, all at the same time, all of these things taken together totally reframe the battle that's happening behind the scenes right now. I've got to admit that I've been a little skeptical about the story of the Uranium 1 and all of that. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I feel kind of like it's a bit of a distraction, but I don't know, man. There's a whole lot of circumstantial smoke kicking up now that I don't know. I mean, I just kind of feel like if they had this uranium dust and it like proved they have the signature, the atomic signature, they can prove where it came from and they could pin this on Hillary or Barack. Like I feel like it wouldn't do that much. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. For what it's worth, Oscar the Midnight Rider here, back in 2020, posted hidden? Probably supposed to be Hunter? I don't know. Hillary? Biden and Obama may have had SEAL Team 6 killed. Explosive CIA whistleblower exposes Biden's alleged role with the deaths of SEAL Team, claims to have documented proof. Trump retweeted this in 2020. So, I guess take that for what it's worth. And then last couple of interesting anecdotes here. First of all, Roy Cohn, Trump's mentor, represented Rupert Murdoch, co-hosted fundraisers for Reagan's USIA director, Charles Wick, and served on Western Goals Advisory Board using his power and influence to support pro-Contra propaganda, domestic intelligence operations. It says here, at this point, Maurer worked at both the American Security Council and H&K. Another Western Goals advisor was Roy Cohn. A 1982 New York Times article states that Cohn joined the foundation after being satisfied that it had, quote, no ties to the right-wing John Birch Society. Interesting note. Despite Western Goals co-founder Larry McDonald having been a John Birch leader, and Cohn's fellow advisory board member Roger Milliken having funded the society. Cohn's interest in Western Goals may have been tied to the wider pro-Contra networks that were coalescing across the United States in the early 1980s. At the time, Cohn was serving as an attorney to his close friend Rupert Murdoch. Robert Perry has written that the two first became close due to their mutual support for Israel. According to New York Magazine, whenever Roy wanted a story stopped, item put in, or story exploited, Roy called Murdoch. After Murdoch bought the New York Post, Cohn wielded the paper as his personal shiv. At the same time, Cohn was forging close ties with the director of the U.S. Information Agency, Chad Wick, even hosting a luncheon in Wick's honor that was widely attended by influential figures in the conservative press, as well as U.S. senators and representatives. Soon after, then CIA Director William Casey was spearheading an extensive propaganda campaign to shore up public support for Reagan's Latin American policies, including support of the Contras. So, Colonel Watkins says, now you know how Trump knows how these operations work. And this is something that's been, if you listen to like Tommy's podcast where they get into some of this stuff, or Rich Show's Politics, they cover quite a bit how deeply involved in that world Trump has been for his entire life. And I think this is underappreciated, his connections with the both real estate, international finance, and then his run-ins with the mob, with his casinos. He's very, very familiar with that world. He knows it very, very well. And then also from Colonel Watkins, you guys may have heard that Hayden Panettiere died suddenly just recently. Well, check this out. This was a heavily pregnant Hayden Panettiere with her husband Vladimir Klitschko at the CIA-sponsored Maidan coup in Ukraine in December of 2013. Just 4 years later, she was forced to give up custody of the daughter she shared with Klitschko to him. What do they mean by this?
Вечер, друзья.
Поздравляю, украинской мовы. Мы будем стоять здесь до победы, чтобы, и я уверен, и никак по-другому. И нас не переубедишь.
Landscape, your beautiful churches, but nothing compares to the undeniably deep souls of the Ukrainian people.
You're seeing how the sausage is made. That took an interesting turn. Indeed, it did. And then there's this. So who is Diana Jenkins? Who is she really? A penniless Bosnian refugee who marries one of the richest bankers in the city of London, then runs in Hollywood circles with wild celebrity yacht parties. Was she a creation? If so, by who? Her background is eye-opening. So this is Diana Jenkins here, accidental philanthropist, how a penniless Bosnian refugee became a fundraising entrepreneur with the best address book in Hollywood. She denies that she was the friend who put teenage Hayden Panettiere into bed with a very famous man. This is a story that Hayden Panettiere just went viral just recently on a podcast where she was telling the story how a close, trusted friend of hers put her into this situation with some wealthy, famous British musician. Some people are suspecting it's James Blunt. But she just told that story. The thing went viral like 3 weeks ago, and then suddenly she dies. She's like 36. This is an article written by this Diana Jenkins. Don't let Haiti's natural disaster become a man-made tragedy. So, Bosnian refugee marries a City of London financier, is involved in all of these sorts of, I don't know, charitable organizations, and then has a connection to Haiti. Those of you who are aware of the Haiti connections with like the Clinton Foundation, that mention should stand out to you. Awakened Outlaw said the death of actress Hayden Panettiere has brought with it a massive wave of interest that is exposing dark things that she had experienced in her Hollywood career. This includes the story she mentioned in an interview about her recently released book on the matter. She accepted an invitation to go out on a yacht for what she thought was a good time. A yacht owned by Diana Jenkins. Interestingly, she's also been known for recruiting so-called yacht girls. More on that later. Anyway, that fun day at sea facade quickly fell away when she realized there were much darker designs for events and that powerful figures were knowingly involved. I won't get into all the details. Still, she essentially talks about being led down to a cabin by someone she trusted and considered a friend, likely Diana Jenkins, who would have appeared that way to Hayden as she'd been grooming her for this moment, and being placed in bed with a naked man, a well-known celebrity, and the expectation of her having sex with him was made known. In short, it's at this point she ran and hid, but that's not important here. The man in this video is a stand-in, an example of the activities those blunts are affiliated with that are kept secret. The rumors that the man's name is the musical artist James Blunt at that moment was almost certainly earmarked as the day Diana and James were, for lack of a better term, instructed to have her rolled into the icy grips of the globalist deep state cabal Inc., a practice we've learned happens in stages. So this here is from a music video of his. Very curious image. On a speedboat with someone. It looks like a man back here. This to me looks like a man, but it's very interesting imagery. So, yeah, these are many happenings. Many happenings happening. Colonel Watkins says that's not how it works. The refugees are CIA assets in country. They're then brought back to the U.S. as operatives under the guise of refugee status. They and their children are used for domestic operations with plausible deniability. Bosnia was an offensive NATO operation. So she's not actually a penniless Bosnian refugee, the colonel is saying. She was actually a CIA asset who was embedded in there. And then they say, oh, we need to bring these refugees. We have to let the refugees into the country. This is the same thing. The guy who shot the National Guard members in D.C., he was an Afghan refugee. Same story. So hopefully I have given you some interesting schizo content to chew on. Bryce says, ugh, Matthew, I got a schizo. Well, there you go. I gave you guys some schizo for the night. I'll be doing some more digging on some of these things, and I'll see if I have a small enough bit of important content tomorrow that I can do that Tucker Al-Walid interview on the back end, and we can try to discover some new nuggets for the together. So, I guess we will call it a night for now. Yeah, Augustine, you showed up late. You got to replay gang this one, but there's a lot. There's a lot to it. And I'll be back tomorrow for another episode of the Astrolabe. You have to join the King Pill Discord, because tomorrow we will Labe and then we will VC, and you must come join us for the VC. Go to kingpill.com. Try it for a month. See what you think of it. Come join us tomorrow evening. And make sure you create an account on the new EWBSX platform, beta.ewbsx.com. You should join the Rogue faction. Be one of the Deep South people. We need the XP. Kingless Kingdom has a link for me. What is this? This page doesn't exist. Is the link busted? Yeah, link's not working. No. Do not become a skinwalker. Theodore Dragonsbane, this is fake news. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't listen to him. He will mislead you. Yeah, the link's not working. I don't know what let me try look at your account. Yeah, it looks like you deleted the tweet. You gave a link to a deleted tweet or something like that. I'm not seeing the one you're intending for me to see. Slenderman is king of the clans. Yeah, if you don't know what the clans are all about, well, you just got to go to beta.ewbsx.com and select your clan. Create an account, select your clan, and then join in the fun. And yes, Jeffrey, as Jeffrey says, join the fucking Discord, kingpilled.com. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. For now, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough.